Welcome back to the Have Not Room. I'm Ben. I'm joined as always by Chad and Brian, and we are here to cover the first week and a half, I guess, week to 2 weeks of Big Brother Canada 9. It's our first real recap of the season. Guys, how are you enjoying the season so far, Chad? What are your thoughts so far on Big Brother Canada season 9?
Yeah, as someone who's new to the Big Brother Canada world here, I think it's super cool. I feel like it's Big Brother US, but like a little better. Production-wise, it's like the house is incredible. Everything they do, it just feels like Big Brother US had like a couple extra $1 million in budget. But no, I love it. I mean, this cast is awesome. They're fun to watch. The episodes are fun to watch. There's not much like meat on any of these bones in terms of gameplay, but I mean, it's fun. Hopefully, gameplay steps up in the episodes. I mean, as you know, on the live feed, it's a little different story, but I mean, I like it so far. It's awesome.
Yeah, Brian, what are your thoughts so far in episodes 1 through 3 and the little start of the season here we have?
So far, I am enjoying it. Like Chad said, I'm always very impressed with the production value, specifically around the editing of the beginning. Like, they're just so extra about everything with the graphics and like the zooms, and you know, it's a lot of fun. So it's been an interesting start to the game. I know on Twitter last night, Ben, you were going off about the edit in the episode, so I'm really interested to talk about that because I haven't had a lot of time to watch live feeds or like read Reddit. So this is going to be like kind of have the show, and then Ben will give like the real story and kind of take it from there. But not excited to see my boy Kiefer on the block after this episode.
Right. No, I mean, absolutely. As Chad said, like the production quality and like the comp design, the set design of Big Brother Canada is just like way over the top and like way like more elaborate and cool looking than the Big Brother US, or at least modern Big Brother US is and historically has been. The one thing though they could probably improve on from Big Brother US is story production. Because, as you mentioned, the storyline on the episodes so far, episode 2 I thought was very good, but episode 3 I think left a lot to be desired in terms of actually explaining what's going on, and a lot of complete fabrication in what was happening on that episode, which we'll talk about. But yeah, I think that kind of comes down to like the way that Big Brother Canada kind of sets things up. Is they kind of have this idea of how they want the season to go in their head, and they don't really like understand that it's a game and a show that requires kind of improvising the story as it goes, rather than just kind of locking themselves into this one storyline. So for this instance, I think they've kind of locked themselves into this idea of like, oh, it's the team storyline. We're talking about the teams, when in reality the teams kind of don't really matter.
Right. But yeah, let's just go quickly through the episodes because, like you mentioned, there's not a ton of meat. And then
I really want to hear the background.
I basically going to have to do like a 1-hour episode here that they should have done on Monday night.
So if you feel like you're missing out on stuff, this is the place. You'll get the true tea, as it were.
True tea, yeah. The true tea, not just the tea that Josh is serving to everybody to try to make them vote for him to stay.
Not true.
Yeah, so we started off episode 1. The majority of this, like the first half of this, is basically like a rehashing of the pregame materials for the most part that we've already seen. So we don't really have to go too deep into that. We had a 2-hour podcast covering these materials.
I was thinking that too. I was like, man, these are literally just the pregame things.
There's a few like new like clips that weren't exactly used, and obviously we didn't really get a chance to talk about Kyle, who is an alternate on the cast, because we recorded about 18 hours before the previous contestant who had been on the show was booted and replaced by Kyle.
Mhm.
Definitely the correct decision there by Big Brother Canada. Really, after watching Kyle on the feeds and how big of a fan he seems to be, and he does like these weird camping LRG style trips with his buddies, I don't really understand why he wasn't on the show to begin with instead.
They wanted the hockey bro, I guess. Like,
no, Kyle is a hockey bro.
They wanted a dumbass, is what they wanted.
Yeah.
The jock, like, bro stereotype, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Kyle is that, but he also has some game time, and he likes to show. I don't know.
They're like, we can't have that.
We'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll talk about it. But yeah, we don't really. I guess you guys can give your impressions of Kyle here, because we didn't really get a chance to cover him too much.
Yeah, I mean, so far for me, he seems cool. There hasn't been a lot of him. I don't think he had even a confessional this episode. I don't know how many confessionals he's had. Or diary rooms he's had altogether, but he's there. I saw him pumping his fists in the air after his team won HOH, and I remember being like, "Oh yeah, there's Kyle." I forgot about him, but he doesn't seem to be in a bad spot at all. So he doesn't seem to be in a great spot from the TV show, anyways. So I'm interested to hear if he is actually doing anything behind the scenes that's just not being shown, or if he's just laying low entirely.
Yeah, Chad. I mean, we did get the Kyle and Rohan like pool game scene in the Monday night episode, which was one of the more useful scenes in that episode, in my opinion. But yeah, do you have any first thoughts about Kyle here before we get into the actual stuff, Chad? You didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Brian just kind of wrapped it up. I just haven't seen enough on him to fully form my opinion, but I mean, he seems like just a pretty chill, cool dude who's just, I mean, clearly he's a fan of the show, which is cool. But yeah, I just want to see more of him. And from that talk with Rohan at the pool table, he's got a little gameplay in him. So I think he's going to be fun to watch if he goes far enough.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that he's definitely something to keep an eye on. So starting off episode 1, after everybody kind of gets into the house, or I guess kind of in the beginning of that, we get the reveal of our 2 captains for this captain's team twist that we're doing. And they are Kiefer and Tina. This will be important beyond this episode, which we'll get to. Yeah. But any surprises here?
No, not for me. I mean, I'm pretty sure we called this, right? We were like, okay, it's going to be these 2 for sure, because who else would you vote for than the obvious, outcasts of the show? So not too surprising on my end. I don't know about you, Chad.
No, I mean, you can tell that the Big Brother fans are the heavy side of the votes here, and not just like normal people who just like tune in and like, oh, I'll vote for a guy.
Right.
Yeah.
You can tell it's a Big Brother fandom coming through.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that ironically, the only other person that I would have thought could have possibly been a captain would have been Julie.
Right, yeah.
Probably number 3 on the voting, just because it seemed like the online fan base really kind of hit it off with her from her pregame stuff. And also, she is like a social media influencer. She has 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. So, like, she has a fan backing behind her that theoretically could have voted for her if that was mobilized in some way.
Can you vote from America to Canada?
I didn't try with a VPN. I assume you can't. I assume without a VPN. Right. But I assume you probably could with a VPN. But I never vote for any of this stuff, anyways. Even in the U.S. version of the show.
Right. It'd be sad for her if like most of her, fans are from like America and they didn't have a VPN to vote. But is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. It's it's for the vote. The votes. That's for Canada. Okay. I'll watch the show, but I'm not gonna interact in that way as an American. For at least it's for me. But again, I don't even really do it for the U.S. show, anyways. So
yeah. Actually, this is a small tangent, but apparently with CBS All Access becoming Paramount Plus, they just took away BBOTT off. So
I think that was a glitch. I think I saw somebody post that was a glitch and if the show is still there, there's like still like a hard link to it,
Okay.
but they like didn't like there was a glitch in terms of them actually like putting a link on the page that it should be on.
All right, I was gonna say that was like the biggest like fan voting season, and they were just like, you know what, these fans can't be trusted again.
I mean, as far as like compelling television, you know, there was a lot of issues with OTT, but it was definitely compelling television as far as modern Big Brother goes.
I agree. It was a good season if you didn't watch the live feeds.
Yeah.
Might help us.
I mean, okay, we'll get a little bit off topic here. We have a lot to cover here. We have to catch up on literally the entire strategy of the house for a week and a half because the show is not doing it. So, yeah, we have Kiefer and Tina. They pick their teams. Nothing from the pick itself really stood out too much to me. Rohan kind of went pretty late in the draft as far as being like kind of a big like physical dude. Funnily enough, we end up with Victoria being picked very late, and I think she was picked second to last by Tina, and she ends up basically winning the first team challenge for Team Destiny. Is this something that you saw coming here, Chad? Does Victoria coming out right after the gate and winning the first challenge for her team?
Maybe she was motivated by being picked last. I don't know. It was cool they opened with like an endurance challenge, though. I did like that. Victoria pulling it out, maybe she just wanted it more than anyone else. But no, good for her, like cementing herself as like, hey, I'm actually pretty tough. You know, I'm pretty physical here. Don't count me out of these physical comps. So good for her.
Yeah, I agree. I think at first when she was like playing it up that she was not holding on very well, I was like, I just believed it. And then like cut to her in the diary room being like, this is so easy. Like I gotta pretend, and then she just won. I was like, damn, that's impressive. I gotta hand it to her.
Yeah, especially doing that before it was revealed that Kiefer and Tina would be doing like the Survivor thing of like dumping water. Like we were doing Survivor teams, and like all of the challenges are very Survivor-esque. Yeah. We have them holding onto buckets where people are adding buckets or water into the buckets to make them heavier. And then there's the next HOH challenge is like a classic Survivor balancing balls on a thing. So yeah, the fact that she kind of either on purpose or accidentally, it kind of worked out that she was complaining about how hard it was as like a ruse, and that probably led to Kiefer not dumping as much water as he probably otherwise would have into her bucket. She stayed around for a lot longer, was able to hold out. Yeah, definitely impressive. Pretty funny that Kiefer is joking about, you know, oh, we're going to do men versus women, and Tina's like, nah, screw you. No, we're not doing that. And Tina's team ends up being majority women, and then they have like a pure like strength challenge, basically, and they all end up winning. So, yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, she picked a great team so far, it seems like.
And she just, 2 for 2.
She just had a good eye for talent. I don't know.
Yep, definitely. Yep. Definitely a bellwether for Tina's performance in the game, as well as we'll get to later on. So yeah, we get the Team Destiny being immune. Kiefer is also immune as a team captain, and we get like a full, real explanation of what the hell is going on with this like crazy twist, where all 6 of the other Defender members are going to be co-nominees. There's going to be essentially 6 people on the block. And all 6 of those players will also get a vote, and then Tina is basically filling the HOH role of not voting unless there's a tie. So, Brian, what are your thoughts on this as an opening twist?
I don't like twists, and especially in Big Brother, and I especially don't like twists that like fundamentally change the game you're playing. You know, I think for any of these games, be it Survivor, Big Brother, backyard versions of these shows, don't do a twist that changes the game people showed up to play.
Yeah.
You know, like because when people go in, they have like a game plan, and it's based on the presumption that they're going to be playing one way, and then you throw this like, I don't I didn't like it almost at all, but I don't know. What do you guys think on it? Am I too hard on this? I don't know.
No.
Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
I mean, it's basically just round one was Big Brother's version of Survivor. I mean, you basically had two tribes, losing tribe. They voted who they want to vote out, except the opposing tribe, which is the other team, can also vote. So it's just like, I mean, it felt like Survivor round one to me. I'm glad they got rid of that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but now there's only two people in the block again. So
Yeah.
if they kept going with that, I would have been annoyed. Thank God they nixed it after one round. But yeah, it wasn't that great. I mean, it was going to fall down to two people anyways, but I don't know. It just felt unnecessary.
Yeah, I think the reason that, especially Big Brother Canada, does these sorts of weird first round rules where they like basically don't play Big Brother for a round and somebody kind of like RNG goes home is because they like to do this like 2-night premiere format where they have like the Wednesday, Thursday episodes to start the season, and they don't want to wait basically 5 episodes for somebody to be evicted. Like they don't want the audience, like a casual audience, to have to like literally sit through 5 full episodes before somebody is eliminated from the show. So they want somebody to be eliminated on that first Thursday, and there just like isn't enough physical time in like a 2-hour like 2-night premiere to do like a full normal round of Big Brother where you have to do the introductions, the move in, like a real HOH comp, a real veto comp, have all the ceremonies, have like strategy introductions, and like have like a real eviction. So what they do is they have this like weird first round format. They've done this pretty regularly for the last few seasons. It hasn't been like a normal kind of first round of Big Brother, at least in Big Brother Canada recently.
I mean, BBUS does dumb stuff too at the beginning of the game, so I guess I can't entirely put this on BB Canada, but yeah, I like it.
Yeah. No, definitely. A lot of weird stuff. Like you look at like the start of like BB19, where you have like a similar thing with a bunch of comps, and then like all these weird things, and like Cameron just kind of also gets kind of RNG'd out of the game. You look at even like last season of Big Brother Canada, where there's like a fan vote with the 4 least likable people in the house play in 2 comps, where the first comp somebody wins in a safe, the second comp somebody wins in a safe, and the last 2 people end up on the block together.
I think I have a crazy idea for them to fix it. Start on Monday night. And then
or even start on like Thursday night. Like you can basically have Thursday night be like a full like real introduction episode. Like actually show like a significant amount of them interacting with each other, because we saw very little on the Wednesday night episode. We saw like basically like Ty and Jed talking to each other. And they eventually hook up with Latoya as well. But there's very little like interaction and like first impressions, that sort of thing. It's kind of like we're gonna get thrown in here. Oh, and then we have to do this schoolyard pick thing, and then now we have to do this challenge. And there's not a lot of room there for them to actually introduce these people in like a collective setting. So yeah, I think that the way to solve it is to do a full real introduction episode on Thursday. Nobody goes home, and then end the Thursday night episode with them starting the first HOH, and just treat it like it's the end of the first eviction, but there's no actual eviction.
Yeah, I think that works too. I mean,
So,
better than this the way they did it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too hard on it. I've been liking the show so far. I don't want to trash it, but
it just feels very rushed, and it feels like obviously we're going to talk about Julie being the first evicted. Like Julie definitely made like a significant number of mistakes to get herself evicted. Like it's not like she was RNG'd out like we're talking. Like she got herself evicted. But it still would have been like there's a chance with a normal week that she might not have ended up on the block, or this like some other people might have been more under pressure, right? So yeah. We move on. Episode 2. we have our first eviction episode of the season, and this is where we really got the meat of like kind of the strategy, the talks, the drama of the first week that we didn't see on the feeds. And so Chad, what was kind of some standout things that you thought from the Thursday episode? Whether it's like Josh's gameplay, Julie's gameplay, some of the decisions of some of the other players, what really kind of stood out to you? Latoya, even.
Yeah, I mean, I guess mostly Julie, just and them highlighting her mistakes and she even like wraps it up into her saying, "Oh, I got a big mouth," and it's because she's going to this person and. And she's telling her other alliance like everything going on, and her own team ends up turning against her. So it's just like she played herself out of the game very well. I don't know. I just didn't get a good vibe from her. The edit made her seem like this like very overconfident person. I mean, there's nothing wrong with her, but I can see why people would want her out. She just has a huge personality, and I think the show highlighted that pretty well. I'm not sure if it was episode 2 or at the start of 3 where Latoya kind of claimed it as like her victory getting Julie out. I think it might have been the start of episode 3, but I mean, if Latoya was the mastermind behind all that, I mean, that's awesome. Good for her. But yeah, I mean, I thought episode 2 was definitely like the bulk of what we've seen so far in terms of gameplay.
Yeah, I thought that it was unfortunate. Like, it looked like Josh was going to go, and then Julie, not necessarily trying to get Josh to stay, but trying to rally people to potentially form an opposition alliance to what she perceived as the people running the house, got her in a lot of trouble. And I thought it was very funny that when she confronted Latoya had one of the worst, like, confrontation, like, handling segments I've ever seen in my life. And I've watched a lot of reality television. Like, it was like, she's like, "Are you voting for me?" And she's like, "I'm just not going to talk to you." It's like, so yes, you're voting for me. Yeah.
That's bad.
That's really bad.
Yeah, no, definitely I agree. That's something I wanted to bring up as well, because we're going to talk a lot about Latoya. Latoya's in a very good position right now in the house, and Chad correctly said that she was the main driving person because Josh was going to be going up until Wednesday into Thursday. Like, there was like 3-ish to 4 days where it was like pretty locked in that it was Josh. And then there was a blow up that happened between Julie and Josh, and Latoya used that as a way for her to flip the vote onto Julie. She basically started pulling people individually into the bathroom and like saying, "Okay, we're going to flip the vote on Julie. All right, next, come back. Okay, we're flipping the vote on Julie." And it kind of just like seeped that way. Kiefer was also somebody who was lightly involved in this. He was the one who kind of got this information out to basically all of the like outsider people other than Victoria, who found out like basically last minute and decided to still vote for Julie to stay as the only person. But yeah, Latoya, like I was hard on her in the preseason, and she's definitely exceeded my expectations so far. She's been one of the players who has definitely done better than I expected her to. But there's still some reservations I have, and one of them definitely is that she does not handle confrontation well at all. She is very averse to lying or like deceiving people. She's talked about it numerous times in the house, where she just doesn't want to like have to tell people things that she knows are untrue, or to like have to break her word. So that's something that she's kind of been struggling with so far in the game, and I think that's part of why she didn't really want to lie to Julie's face, and she also didn't want to tell her the truth because she didn't want to have to deal with the blow up of telling her the truth either. So she kind of fell into this middle ground of like, "I'm going to leave. This is not a conversation I would like to be in." And so it's definitely something she has to work on. And she's vocalized that. She's saying, "I know that people are yelling at their screens, just lie. Just lie. It's that easy. Just lie." And she's like, "But it's hard for me." That's what she said.
It's, I mean, I get that, but you also agreed to play Big Brother, so
yeah,
it comes with the 2021 that comes with the understanding that you're gonna lie, and no one's gonna be like,
Yeah.
I can't believe that person lied.
Yeah.
They applaud it. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we have here is we have this like day 3 blow up, which is going to be brought up again in episode 3 and is like pretty frequently brought up, especially in relation to Josh, where Josh kind of has like a paranoid moment that is how he recalls it, where he sees these 4 big bros together. Yeah, we talked about it in the preseason. The last full season of Big Brother Canada, as everyone has seen, is Big Brother Canada 7. And everybody in the house is going to be laser eyes looking for the Pretty Boys 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Josh sees in these 4 guys who are not actually working together. And he starts spreading it like wildfire. Yeah, not great.
No. It kind of reminds me of is gonna be weird for people who are just here for Big Brother Canada, but on Survivor, a lot of people have gone out because they've been compared to like Parvati, like so unfairly. Like it reminded me of that. It's just like, man, you don't really have any evidence other than this happened before, so it's gonna happen again.
Right.
So
yeah. No, it's it doesn't help that they have this TikTok board in the background where they keep playing clips from Big Brother Canada 7. They have like Adam Pike in the back, and they have the Anthony Adam eviction and all that. So they have all this this Pretty Boys content constantly playing. I can't imagine if that's incepting people a little bit.
Like Josh. It's hilarious. Poor kid.
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna be like. I thought he was like the weird in a way that like, hey, I'm a kind of like an outsider. I'll float under the radar, not talk to anyone, not be a threat. But he's like the total opposite direction of weird, where he's just like this paranoid like weirdo who like sticks around people too long to the point where Keeper's like, just get out of my face, bud.
That was a rough scene.
That was rough to see.
Episode
Like,
3.
oh man. Same
It's
in
like
the
trying
Big Brother
to
house.
comfort him. Be like, yeah, it's all right, man. Don't worry. He's like, go away. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Also, not a great look in episode 3 at the end, where he talks about how it was his own doing that caused him to be saved in week 1, when literally every time he tries to, or he like brings that up, or like that idea is brought up in the house, people basically laugh in his face about it, because everyone else is like, he literally did nothing to save himself in week 1.
Right.
It also doesn't help that like people are pretty frequently already acting like he's been evicted, like to his face. Like Kiefer is saying things like, wouldn't it be crazy if there's a twist where Julie and Josh come back in as the new team captains and we repick teams? And Josh is like, I'm sitting right here. And we have Victoria in the kitchen. Victoria in the kitchen, like talking, like I can't remember what she said exactly. I think she said something very similar of like, do you think people are going to come in to replace Julie and Josh? And like Josh is literally sitting like right there, like they're just literally all acting like he's already been evicted from the house for days.
It's messed up.
That's wrong. That's a bit much.
But yeah, no, I mean, it sucks, that he like made himself such a social pariah like so quickly in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't really say I'm super surprised.
Yeah.
I said in my preseason assessment that I didn't think he would do well. He was literally the bottom of my pecking list or my tier list as far as the players. And yeah, it sucks. You don't like to see people like so socially isolated in the house, and like they've also in the house kind of been self-aware about it. Like, yeah, we're kind of treating Josh like shit a little bit. We should probably stop doing that. So at least they've mostly noticed it and are like trying to be slightly better about it up until the house meeting today, which we'll talk about. But yeah, that's kind of what we get from episode 2. It sucks to see Julie go. I had high hopes for her. She definitely did not live up to the expectations I had. But yeah, never know if if we have like a BB All Stars next season, maybe she gets brought back as like kind of a rando pick.
Hey, you know what? It sucks that it didn't work out, but at least she has like a seemingly pretty good social media career to go back to. Probably even got a little bit more of a bump from the BB community. Yeah. And she didn't say anything bad that would reflect badly on her. So you know what? It could have been a lot worse. Yeah, I know being the first one out.
Feeds. The one good thing about not appearing on feeds is you don't have the opportunity to say something you might regret on feeds.
So she played this perfectly.
And she is to confirm, back on social media now. So she is definitely back out of the house, not coming back into the game. There is not going to be, or there is almost probably not going to be at least a pre-jury buyback at this point, because she is home.
It's good to know.
So
long.
Yep. Move on to episode 3, where we get our first real HOH challenge of the season. And it's a classic don't let your balls drop style competition on a bow and arrow. Yep. 2 endurance competitions back to back. Very interesting. So we have our first HOH of the season, and it is Austin.
Yeah. Interesting. Her and LaToya, I was like, I didn't know which way that was going to go. Obviously, I knew because I had heard who won, but like watching it in the show, I thought LaToya was seemingly like really zeroed in, and like I was surprised that she ended up being the one to lose. But hey, good on Austin and Team Destiny, right?
Correct, Team Destiny. Yeah. 2 for 2 now on being safe. Yep. And we talked about in the preseason, there could be people who end up, getting into the jury phase of the season. You're like, wait, what? And it's because they've been immune for 7 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, it's shaping up.
That's stupid.
Yeah. So, Chad, what are your thoughts on Austin's HOH and the decisions that she made in the Monday episode? We'll talk a little bit more about, some of the conversations that were not shown necessarily and the decisions that were not shown. But from the episode, what were your thoughts on Austin?
Purely from the episode, and disregarding what I now know is really going on. First, I'm shocked that she won. I mean, good for her. These unexpected HOH wins from people who really don't seem like they're like physical threats by any means. But they're proven everyone, I should say, could be, they could win an HOH at any time. So it's good to see that. Normally there's like a handful of people you can be like, this person's probably going to win HOH. But regardless, good for her. I think she picked the safest nominees she could, especially given she only had, 5 people to choose from? Or 6?
She had 6, but she did make a deal, technically, apparently, with LaToya.
Right, the challenge.
Yeah, and you can't go back on that now. And why would she?
And Brayden is basically her best friend in the house, so she had, 3 or 4 at best.
Yeah, so, I mean, why not pick Kiefer, who's, he's a big name in the house. He's doing very well. And then Josh is just an easy, people already think he's gone anyway, so... it's a very safe HOH, but knowing what's going on in the background, I think she's getting snowballed, and that whole thing with Beth, and she thinks she's a ride or die. I think that's awesome, which you'll get into, I'm sure. But it just feels like she's just the placeholder, and she's being controlled by the majority alliance. So,
yeah. No, yeah, we'll definitely get into that. What do you think, Brian, about the idea of how to play an HOH like this when there's very limited people you can even nominate? Like, how do you squeeze the value out of your HOH? I think that's something I want to talk about in terms of how Austin plays this week and some of the mistakes maybe she makes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like we got a good insight into who she necessarily considers a threat or who considers someone who at least to be wary of down the line. So I suppose from that point of view, she did, I guess, the smart thing and just nominated one, the social outcast, like the House Majority boot, and then two, Kiefer, who was smack talking, I guess, during the competition, which made for an easy excuse. And then also, like, if she didn't have that excuse, I'm sure she could have been like, well, you weren't on the block. Everyone else on your team was on the block. So I got to at least put you up, to make it fair, something like that. But I don't necessarily have the intel to make a call on who, she would want out. I think in situations like this, you got to really have a good read on where you are in the house, and then kind of work from there. So, like, you look at a player like Derek in BB16, he won the second HOH of the season. He put up Devin, the house pariah, and had a very clean HOH, but he was also in good with a lot of people at the time. So it was in his best interest to not rock the boat too much and to just kind of go with the house flow. Hopefully you can give more insight on where she stands in the house and how that kind of, shades or colors rather her decisions to put up these two players.
Yeah, well, the thing is she's not in a power position in any way in the house right now, which we'll talk about in more detail. But she thinks she is, which is, I think, the issue. Like, she thinks she's in a 4-person alliance with Beth, Ty, and Jed, and then also kind of has a relationship with people like Brayden and Victoria. So I think she has a higher opinion of her game positioning than is actually reality. But yeah, even
that's
just
what I'm saying. Yeah, you gotta, you need to know where you are in order to have a successful HOH. And with it being so early, I don't blame her necessarily that she doesn't have a good grasp on it, because she's never been potentially in danger. She hasn't seen like a lot of votes, so like it's hard to know for sure who's knowing you and who's like, being legit.
Right. And then even on top of that, because of the way this is formatted, so Austin is technically the first HOH. And generally, when you're the first HOH in Big Brother, that gives you a lot of power, a lot of leverage, a lot of leeway. You're often included in any kind of early majority alliance that forms just by default, just because you have the power. It makes it very easy. And it also gives you a lot of opportunity to make deals, gather info, and kind of like position yourself in a way where you're like basically using the threat of nomination to get people to come to you and like give you their word for the next couple of weeks, give you information about their own positioning, their own relationships, what they're seeing, who they think should be nominated. I think that's basically why there is kind of like a lot of people historically have said, oh, you don't want to win the first HOH. I think that's kind of flipped around in the last 5 to 10 years, where now I think it's definitely correct if you're a good player to win the first HOH, just because if you play it well, you can really get a lot of value out of it. The issue here is, go ahead, Jed.
I mean, Cody, Big Brother 22.
Exactly. Yeah, our most recent Big Brother winner, first HOH, and played that week basically perfectly. And he talked in this initial interview with Julie right after he won about how he was going to play it, and it was perfect. And he utilized that to get into Majority Alliance, get out an easy target, and really solidify his position in the game. The issue here, though, is twofold. One, while Austin is the first HOH, she's not winning the first HOH right off the bat, like at the very start of the season. They've already played basically a week of the game, and she's already been excluded from the real majority alliance that we'll talk about, the Sunsetters. And she doesn't know that. So she's not really getting the value that you would normally get out of that part of the HOH. And then on top of that, as Chad mentioned, there's basically 3 people that she can nominate. So the idea that she can use her HOH power to like kind of like vaguely basically kind of govern with fear and allow people to like be forced to come up to her in her HOH room and give her information and have these one-on-one conversations with them to form relationships, try to build alliances, and just like gather information in general. That's not happening. That's something that she expected to happen. She talked about that when she won the HOH. Oh, I'm going to go set up my HOH room. People are going to have to come to me. And nobody came to her other than the 3 people who were like potentially going to be nominated. We saw that in the episode. And then there were other people who theoretically came up and talked to her, like Braden and Victoria, who are just her friends. They didn't really talk strategy really in any major way. And the other people who came up and talked to her were Ty, Beth, and Jed, who made this fake alliance with her and literally are just up there to manipulate her into doing what's best for them. So she's getting literally negative value out of this HOH. She's going to get out somebody who was not really a threat to her, as we'll talk about, because Josh is basically going to be going. And he was a house pariah. He still is. So as somebody who isn't in the majority alliance, it's not really like valuable for her to just get out somebody, like take a piece off the board that doesn't matter, because that's not, as you said, like mixing up the status quo. That's just going to like lead down the inevitable path where she's going to get evicted probably soon.
Yeah.
And on top of that, she is not actually getting any of the normal value you would get out of an HOH because of the circumstance and because of the way she plays it, and doesn't really adjust her strategy to the way the twist is formatted. So, yeah, I'm very unimpressed with the way Austin has played this week. I think it's one of the worst first HOHs in my opinion, and Big Brother.
Oof.
If you watch the show, you'd think she was a master like manipulator strategist, because they don't really explain anything that happened. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Anything from the episode 3 that kind of stood out to you guys before we really dive into what the house structure is and who's playing really well?
I thought it was kind of brutal that they like showed Victoria talking about how hard her life was, and then then Austin's like, "I love my family so much. It's so great to have them." I was like, Jesus Christ, why are these segments next to each other?
Yeah.
Like, but that was just for me, just being like taken aback from that. Nothing really game wise.
What do you guys think? Oh, we didn't talk about the steal or share.
Oh yeah, the prisoner dilemma.
Completely necessary 10-minute time sink that really mattered and wasn't completely predictable.
Yeah, I mean, it made it seem like LaToya did like come in there and be like, "You're gonna fucking share." And they were like, "Yeah, I think we should actually share." Because if they were all willing to go on slop, then steal was the optimal move for them. Just because the other team has already been on slop. If they win the steal, they get an advantage. They get better food. If they lose it, they're on the equal ground, but their other team's weaker by virtue of having been on slop already. So that it made it seem like LaToya talked him out of that, which is fun. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like another unnecessary thing that was like, oh, this is neat, but like, who gives a shit? Like, it didn't impact the game in any way whatsoever.
No.
Like, unless someone actually stole, and, like, the POV advantage was like actually good, then it doesn't matter. I mean, either way, in the end, in reality, here, it didn't matter at all. They get to sing Kumbaya over PB&J. Yeah, cool.
Hey, and it looks like Chips Ahoy also.
Oh,
that's not nothing.
You know what? I stand corrected. Yeah, that's game changing.
Literally, like half of those chips are used to try to make a breaded chessboard. So
that's pretty gross.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. Definitely asking for mold and mildew and stuff or whatever. Not a great idea. They should just give them a chessboard like most.
Yeah, well, why can't they at least have a chessboard? There's like the or even a checkers board, something like Connect 4.
Play chess and pool, because listening to the balls on the feeds is just so fucking nice.
Right next to their mics, just clacking. Yeah,
over and over again. But I mean, it was a silly segment. Like, the one thing it did is it showed who the people are who like aren't strategically smart, in my opinion. And those are the people who, in my opinion, were the most vocal about potentially stealing, which I think is just straight up incorrect in this situation. And those were Tara and Austin, who are also, some of the worst strategic players in terms of the game itself. So it lines up.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, it's just not necessary.
I mean, was there any world where they were going to not pick Cher?
Apparently they were considering it. I can't imagine why. Because the way the Prisoner's Dilemma works, right, is your decision doesn't really affect you, right? It's your decision is affecting whether the other person is screwed over or not. So if you pick the bad option, the other person is getting the bad option no matter what. If you pick the good option, the other person is getting the good option. So like if you pick steal, the other team is always getting slopped no matter what. And if you pick share, the other team is always not getting slopped. So like yes, like theoretically the veto advantage or whatever could have been relevant, but they're all safe regardless for the week. Why do they care? Right. The other team theoretically would have had more of an incentive to steal because like
no doubt,
the veto, and so like the idea that Austin, or like I guess Austin as HOH theoretically doesn't want the veto to be won by a nom, but like it doesn't really matter because everyone knows who she would put up regardless. Like literally everybody knew what Austin's noms were going to be and who the replacement nom would be the second she won HOH. That's how like locked in it was. So like people like Austin and especially Tara, who has no fucking reason at all to steal, are just like kind of just showing their asses to me at this point in terms of their acumen. But yeah, all right. I think we've covered enough for the episodes. We've gone on way too long. There's a lot to talk about on the feeds. A lot of shit has gone down. There's a majority alliance that literally hasn't even been vaguely hinted at within 3 hours of Big Brother Canada television. There was a House meeting today. There's an eviction we have to preview. So let's get started with the formation of the Sunsetters Alliance. This is the alliance. Every season has one, and we can cut this out right now. This is for Austin. This is for anybody in the future who is going to go on Big Brother in a modern season. Every single season of Big Brother, there is a secret majority alliance. If you are not 100% sure you are in the secret majority alliance by like day 3, day 4, you are not in a good position. You need to win power, figure out who's in the majority alliance, and target them ASAP. Please, for the love of God, this happens every season. Don't do what Austin did. Please. And don't do what people might do next week, which is also not target the majority alliance.
Yeah, it's one thing when the majority alliance is winning all the comps, but it's another thing when they're not, but they're still dictating the game. That's when it gets just immensely frustrating as a viewer.
So let's just put that on the table right away. In the future, if you're on next season, if you're watching this, if you somehow end up on next season of Big Brother US, Big Brother Canada, whatever. If you're not in a majority alliance, if you can't with 100% certainty go into the diary room and say, I am in the secret majority alliance of the season, you are not in a good spot and do something about it. All right?
Right. And also give us a shout out on the feeds, of course.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. Ben, this is for you, right before you go and nominate people you think are in the majority alliance.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That would be amazing. Give us something. It would really boost our numbers. But yeah, so we have this majority alliance. We saw like the seeds of it kind of with Ty and Jed working together and then bringing in Toya as a third. They also then bring in Tina and Kiefer, who are the captains, as a fourth and a fifth. And then eventually they bring in Beth as a sixth. Jed is the one who is pushing the hardest for Beth to be their sixth, even though Tina and LaToya don't necessarily fully trust her or really have that much of a relationship with her. She is like kind of flirty with Jed, flirty with Ty. At this point, it's looking like her and Ty are probably going to end up in like a full showmance at some point. But yeah, so that's the six. It's Jed, Ty, Latoya, Tina, Kiefer, Beth. One of those 6 is winning the game. All right, let's get out of the way.
We did it, boys. We got our winner picks.
Have not wrong.
Yes.
All 3 of our winner picks are in that 6. That's half of the alliance. We have basically a 50-50 chance of one of our winner picks winning the game.
That would be good for our numbers too. If we can just keep picking the winners every time. Make a compilation in a couple of years.
Right. So quickly to go over the structure of the 6. And then we'll kind of like talk about the structure of the rest of the house. Obviously, we saw Ty and Jed working closely together. They're kind of in this weird like flirty love triangle thing with Beth. Even though like Jed and Ty were shown to be working together closely on the show, they're not really like talking that much game with each other outside of group settings, which is strange. They're very close in terms of friends, but they're not really like executing themselves as like a strategic pair very much. The primary strategic pair in this alliance is actually Latoya and Tina, who are very, very close to each other, and are kind of the ones who have the most one-on-one time in terms of like having like full-on game conversations with each other. And Tina like frequently covers this by saying like, "Oh, we just talk a lot about personal stuff. We don't really talk about game that much," which is a lie.
Love that Tina's in like such a good position. It's so fun.
No, yeah. I mean, I'll talk more about Tina. Tina is the best player in the house by far, not even close. And on top of that, we have Kiefer, who is like kind of like on the outskirts of the alliance. Like multiple people in the alliance have talked about like, well, if the team thing sticks around, we might end up having to put Kiefer on the block just as a pawn, you know. And it's like, it's unlikely that he'll be in danger anytime soon, but he's definitely not in a positive position within the alliance itself. You have Beth, who is kind of flirting with Jed and Ty, as I mentioned, kind of showmancing with Ty a little bit at this point, but she also has what she thinks is a very close bond with Tina, but that's kind of one way. She talked on the feeds to the camera multiple times about how her final 2 with Austin is fake, but she would still like Austin to go deep enough into the game so she can use her as a number, basically, if she needs to turn on the Sunsetters. And that her ideal final 2 is with Tina because she trusts Tina. She finds Tina to be very like affable and like, very smart. She is very, very open to a lot of the things that Tina says to her, to the point where Tina like basically has gotten her to do a number of things for her in the game for the last few days. However, Tina and Latoya both do not trust Beth at all and would prefer anybody else in the alliance instead of Beth, basically. And their ideal number 6 that they wanted to bring in, but that was overruled by Jed and replaced by Beth, was Tara. Tina and Tara are very close. Tara is relatively close to Latoya, and Tara basically has nobody right now. So, any questions on the Sunsetters? I know I've talked a lot, but there's a lot to cover.
Straightforward, I think.
Yeah,
it's going to be I feel like it's going to be like a moving alliance with maybe probably like a core 4 that they rotate the last 2. Maybe I don't know. Just thinking out loud, but. Like if people really don't want Beth, why wouldn't Tina just like, hey, let's also work with her and not let Beth know? And now Beth's on the outside, but she still thinks she's in.
Yeah. No, I mean, as we'll mention, like Tina won't necessarily have to worry about that necessarily, because I do think that Beth is in the most danger in terms of being targeted by people outside of the alliance right now. As soon as next week even. So like Tina is definitely thinking forward enough insofar as that she's not like fully team based. She's very individual in her thinking, that like if certain shots get taken at the alliance, as long as it's not being taken at me, as long as it's being taken at Beth, or as long as it's being taken at Jed and Ty, then I'm good and I can still rebound and still have, in fact, probably a better positioning in the alliance after that dust has settled. So the alliance definitely is loyal, but not like to a fault, except for maybe Latoya, who is like relatively team based in her thinking, which is another flaw I think she has. So yeah, let's move away from the Sunsetters and talk about the other players in the house. We have Austin, who was close to Brayden, and they're both kind of close to Victoria, though Victoria is very on her own. And then, as we saw on the show, we have Rohan and Kyle, who are kind of a pair, and are probably the biggest potential monkey wrenches that could be thrown in this alliance. They're the ones who are, both of them are hard targeting Beth headed into next week. There's a potential they could put up Beth with Ty or Beth with Jed, depending on whether or not they're allowed to, if the team twist continues or not. They've also talked about putting up Beth and LaToya if they're allowed to do that, if the team twist is nulled. It's very difficult to talk about people's strategy headed into next week because they have multiple plans depending on whether or not they're allowed to nominate anyone or just people from the team. So that's something to look out for as a potential monkey wrench that can be thrown in this alliance is Ro and Kyle. And this is something that the alliance saw a couple of days ago, even before. We didn't mention it. Kiefer wins the veto. Rohan is the replacement nominee.
Right.
Just get that out there. This is something they noticed a couple of days ago, and it was kind of brought up in a group conversation with the 5 Sunsetters, not including Tina, whether or not they should flip the vote and get out Rohan instead of Josh, because Rohan is feeding information to Kiefer that he is wary of Jed and Ty, that he doesn't trust Beth, that he sees LaToya even as a third with Jed and Ty. This is all information that he's giving to Kiefer because he doesn't see Kiefer as part of that group, even though he is. And Kiefer's running it back to the Sunsetters. So I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on whether or not you think it would be correct for the vote flip to happen. Because we're going to talk about what eventually happens with it. But who do you think would benefit the most from a vote flip?
Who do you think would benefit the most from the Sunsetters Alliance?
Yeah.
I think probably LaToya, because she's in the 3 that Rohan's calling out. And from the small sample size we've seen, she's the least equipped to handle potential confrontation and to be able to navigate around having her spot blown up. Just from... but that's just very surface level based on stuff we've seen. But any of the 3 would be bad. I mean, Kiefer could probably slink away, if Rohan's already considering him as someone who's outside. He's fortunately for him in a position to where if it gets blown up, he can kind of be like, "What? I was never part of this," But I don't know, Chad. What do you think?
I think you're dead on with LaToya. I think Beth probably benefits a lot. I mean, any of the 3, but Beth, because her name's being thrown on a lot more, and seeing as she's already in a showmance with the 3rd option, but people aren't saying Ty's name as much as they are saying Beth's name, based on what Benny just told me. I think Beth would probably benefit the most, if I'm being honest. That any of the 3, honestly.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. It was odd because Kiefer was the one who brought it up first, and I definitely think that he's the one who benefits the least potentially.
Yeah, no, he definitely.
And Ty is the one who then, is the one who major pushes this on Sunday, I believe, after the veto was won, before it was officially used and the replacement was officially made on Monday. So this conversation again happens primarily without Tina. They kind of come to a consensus that it probably would be correct to flip the vote. And then we get this information kind of funneling out to Tina. So first we have Beth coming up to Tina and being like, "Hey, the vote's flipped. We're doing Rohan now. See ya." And then Tina goes and has a conversation with LaToya where she's like, "Wait, what? The vote is flipping?" LaToya is basically Tina's confidant within the alliance. She's the person that she's closest to and trusts the most. And they have a conversation where Tina's like, "No, we're not doing this. We're not doing this flip." She has actually multiple conversations with LaToya. She first has a conversation in the OLG room, and then again later in the backyard. So she really, really definitely does not want to do this flip. She wants Josh out. She sees Josh as more of a wild card, as more of a threat. And she also vocalizes that she wants Kyle and Rohan in the house because she knows that they will probably target the other members of the Alliance first. And she sees Jed and Ty as kind of calling some shots within the Alliance unilaterally. She says this to Latoya, and then she also vocalizes later to Beth that she's not the kind of person who's going to be like dictated to, basically. That, you know, she's not going to take orders from the upper echelon of the Alliance, that they're a group and they should be making decisions together. What that really means is that they should be doing what Tina wants, because Tina's the one who wants the vote flip to not happen the most. And so Latoya ends up going back to the boys and saying, no, Tina does not want to do the vote flip. I don't want to do the vote flip. This is dumb. You know, Josh is a wild card. You know, we basically kept Josh around on week 1 specifically so we could vote him out this week and give us like a cushion. Why are we doing this? Why are we making this move when it's not necessary, right? We're just making a move for the sake of making a move. And the vote flip basically dies, and Tina basically single-handedly kills the vote flip because she doesn't want to do it, because it benefits her to not do the vote flip.
No, it definitely does. And I was about to ask, do you think it would have actually been in Kiefer's best interest to just kind of keep this info to himself? Because I almost do, if Rohan is confiding in him, and it's specifically I'm not going to target you.
Yep.
This early junction of the game, I think that's good info to have and to not act on, to not potentially jeopardize your position with Rohan should he come into power in the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. Do you have any thoughts on that, Chad, whether that's correct or not? Because it's definitely, I think Kiefer has, a feeling of kind of inferiority within the Alliance, maybe, where he, wants to demonstrate that he's providing value to the Alliance. And that might be the reason why. Because Ty also is getting information from Austin, for instance, that he's not necessarily fully sharing with the Alliance and people like Toya, for instance. But yeah, what do you think is correct in terms of Kiefer's positioning here and the information, Jed?
I think Brian kind of nailed it, but if I'm Kiefer and I'm very self-aware of where I am in that alliance, seeing as he's pretty much on the outside in orbit, if you don't tell your alliance, one, even if it gets found out, you can just say, I had no idea. But two, that also shows Rohan that, you didn't spill the beans on him. And, Rohan's targeting 3 people in that alliance that aren't Kiefer. So, why bother telling your alliance, knowing that you're on the outside of it, and you'd be the first to go out of said alliance, especially because you're already on the block or now off the block, I guess. But and then you can Rohan's working with what's his name?
Kyle. Yeah.
Kyle. Yep. So you have them two as an option if this alliance goes to hell, and then you have 2 solid numbers to fight that alliance. You being the third. And then why not pull in some? You can pull in outsiders, maybe Austin, or maybe the other old lady. What the hell's her name?
Tara is definitely been pulled in by Rohan and Kyle to an extent at this point, just because they need her. Number.
Yeah, I think if you're Kiefer and you think just 3 steps ahead, you have a pretty decent number grouping to fight the big alliance. Especially if you're able to put 2 of them up and then have a third you can backdoor. And then if one of that, because if you're Kiefer, they go down to 5, and then they go down to 4 if you vote one of them out. If someone outside that alliance wins power, and now you have the numbers, and you're basically the head of this. You're in a really good spot if that other alliance that Kiefer would hypothetically make out of the people not in the big alliance, the Sunsetters. I think Kiefer would be completely shift the house and be in an amazing spot. Minus being targeted by the Sunsetters.
No, definitely. I think that Kiefer is just really unsure of his positioning in the alliance, and the way that he's he won this veto, which is also very good for him. Like this really creates a situation where he's telling the house basically like, don't use me as a pawn. It's not a good idea.
Yeah.
I can win myself off the block, and then you're going to be forced to renom somebody. It's showing value to his alliance, because the most valuable thing an alliance ever can do for you and Big Brother is win competitions for you. And so like he's demonstrating, Kiefer can actually win competitions, because I don't think a lot of people really would immediately think that he could win competitions for you. Especially because it was like kind of a physical competition. It was like the one where you like stack a bunch of things and it has to balance.
Oh, right, yep.
Yeah. So like it was like pseudo physical. It was more like, kind of more skilly, but still. So yeah, I don't necessarily think he needed to really say all of this information when, it's definitely in his benefit for Rohan and Kyle to stick around and to have this like dynamic of these two bro pairs kind of like battling for supremacy within the house in terms of who's going to really like, be the ones who are left, and they have to take shots at each other, and then they're not taking shots at you. That's great. All right, so yeah, we've been going for quite a while.
Let's get the house meeting.
We still haven't even talked about the house meeting from today. So let's go. This is what happens when the show literally does no work for us, and we have to do all the work.
Right.
Hopefully, when the Wednesday episode's good. But yeah, so the flip is dead, and I don't think Josh ever really, like, nobody outside of the Sunsetters really ever knew that the flip was even a possibility. They like slightly floated the idea to Austin just to see if they could get her vote, because there's also this like subplot of like LaToya promised Rohan her vote and she can't go back on her word, and so like if they have the votes, then it can't be with LaToya unless it's unanimous. And then if they don't have the votes, and then Tina was also using that as an excuse, but for Tina's credit, I'm pretty sure that was just an excuse as like another reason to not do the flip. Whereas with LaToya, I think it's legitimate that she's like afraid of breaking her word.
Right.
So they did float it to Austin. Austin was again open to it, just because Austin is basically open to whatever the last thing she hears is. And so Josh knows he's basically dead in the water. He has a little conversation with himself on Monday, which was yesterday for now, where he's laying in bed and he's like, okay, I have my 4-stage plan for how I'm going to get myself safe this week. And
Josh is
for all the stages, because they're all not great ideas. But the bulk of it was he was going to lie and say that Rohan wanted to backdoor Jed this week. And also he wants to make everyone aware that he would target Austin if he were to win HOH and stay. Because Austin put him on the block, and also because he's like kind of making up a story about Austin being involved in the day 3 stuff and like letting him and Julie take the fall and like, really coming out clean from that. That's not really true from my understanding. And so it kind of gets out. Like, Josh is not great at keeping it secret, and also people kind of expected, based off of Josh's personality, that he wouldn't kind of go out easy. It was expected that he was going to do something big to try to save himself. So preemptively today, Jed actually called a house meeting to sit everyone down and ask everybody, did anybody tell Austin to put me on the block? Bold question. Silence. Tara raises her hand.
You gotta be friggin' kidding.
She said, oh yeah, well, I mean, I talked to Austin. I went through like all of the different possibilities, I talked to her about potentially putting everybody on the
How did your hand?
and Jed's like kind of like, it's not really because obviously Jed is trying to get either Josh or Rohan to admit it, because like they're the ones basically saying the other one was trying to get Jed up on the block, because Rohan had preemptively come to Jed and said Josh was trying to get you backdoored, and he's going to come up to you and say that I was going to be the one to do that. But he came up to me and proposed this idea, and I just kind of sat there and let him pitch this to me, and didn't really say anything back to him, which is true.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jed is like, okay, well, deal with you later, Tara. And then we have this whole blow up where Josh starts to make his, 4-tier pitch, where he's like, Rohan came up to me and we had a conversation, and he said that he wanted me to pick him for the veto competition if I got house guest choice, and he would win the veto and take me down, and then go up to Austin and say, backdoor Jed, we'll get Jed out. And Austin was like, wait, what? When you approached me, saying you to Josh, about potentially taking out Jed, I said, I don't want to do that, and even if I did, we wouldn't even have the votes. And so now Josh gets back involved. I recommend, it's like 20 minutes long. I recommend just going and watching it. It's good stuff. There's a lot of yelling and fighting and a lot of craziness. But yeah, basically what it comes down to is Josh is trying to create this narrative that Rohan is the bigger threat, and also that Austin is basically getting off scot-free from doing a lot of shady things and making a lot of decisions behind the scenes that people aren't seeing, and just kind of blaming everybody else for her decisions. And both of those things have kernels of truth to them accidentally, because Josh doesn't actually have any information about this and he's making most of it up. And people kind of actually notice after the House meeting, they're like, you know what, a lot of the things Josh said actually makes sense. Because incidentally, he's saying things that are sort of true, even though he's making it all up.
He's right.
But it's not helping him at all. He's gone. He's still going home. And even at the end of the meeting, he calls out Beth, because Beth has been telling people that he said that he was too smart for Big Brother anyways. And that is something that he sort of said. And he tries to clarify it in the meeting and saying oh no, it's just that my brain works too fast for this game, and my brain is too big for this game, where I just have so many thoughts running through my head, I can't really keep track of it all. It's all right, that's still not, also doesn't sound that great. You shouldn't be saying that to people. And at the end, Beth is all right, it doesn't matter, you're still going home, Josh. All right, we're done here.
Oof.
Yeah. What are you guys' thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on Jed calling this meeting in general, and all of this nonsense? Just so much crap.
Well, I mean, I never think that calling house meetings necessarily are great for you in the game, if you're the person calling it, but it's usually pretty great for us as fans to watch, so I appreciate that he decided to do it. It's an interesting strategy to try to get out ahead of this, and it's very funny that Tara incriminated herself for no reason. That's really wonderful.
Yeah, no, I started watching it because this happened. The Celebrity UK Circle also started today, and this happened while that episode was airing. And I was watching that, and so I had to go back after and do the flashback and watch it.
Right.
And when the meeting starts and Jed is calling it, and 20 seconds in, we start with Tara being yeah, I said that you should go on the block for no reason at all. Time and time again, Tara is just not built for this game, and she's very funny. She talks about how I never get called to the diary room. My kids don't even know where I am because I'm not on the show. They thought I was going on the show, but I'm clearly not on the show. So my kids were where the hell is Mom?
That's great.
It's very funny, but she's not cut out.
Oh man, you practiced this, Tara. What are we doing? Come on.
No, nobody's peed in the seat yet, I guess. Yeah, so definitely very interesting first house meeting of the season. Hopefully there's more.
Please.
You definitely... Yeah, again, this wasn't the best look by Jed. Definitely putting like a kind of a bullseye on himself for no real reason when he's in a fine position. Rohan and Austin definitely were way too defensive when like the house meeting was never going to matter anyways. So like they're basically kind of like, do protest too much sort of situation.
Yeah.
Not great. Basically, if you're in a house meeting, the best, like, it's kind of like the fifth pleading the fifth sort of situation, where lawyers are like, if you get into a sticky situation with the law, the best thing to do is to shut the fuck up, right? Or if you get into any basically sticky situation,
if you're in any situation, do not talk.
Yeah.
You can only fuck yourself over.
Right. So if you're
incriminate.
Right.
Exactly. You don't pull a Tara. You have the right to remain silent, Tara. You have the right to remain silent.
That's so funny.
Oh man.
That's what we should have told her, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's all a play for not reading Tara Miranda.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, the way that you can tell who benefited the most from a house meeting is by just looking at who didn't speak.
Right.
Literally, the person who spoke the least is probably the one who benefited the most from the house meeting. So that would be people like Tina, Kiefer. Who else didn't even speak? That's pretty much it. Brayden, I guess. Brayden might buy himself an extra week or two instead of, and like Austin might go before him now or something. I don't know, but yeah, definitely like Tina and Kiefer benefited the most from this for sure.
Oh man.
Ty to maybe a lesser extent, but yeah, future house guests. Another like clip we can clip out. If you're in a house meeting, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up unless spoken to.
And even then, maybe not. And
even then, keep it short and sweet. Just say
deflect.
Bullshit. Everyone knows that's bullshit. Not done. You don't need to go on a soliloquy.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else that we need to cover? This was a long one. It probably shouldn't have been this long. I know we talked about not making it long, and I was like, there's no fucking way, because they did nothing on Monday. Just to explain anything, we're going to have to literally cut our own episode to explain what's going on in the house. But yeah, anything else before we wrap this up?
I mean, I don't think so. I think we covered it quite extensively in this one.
Yeah.
And,
I got nothing, man. That was good.
Now that we covered all this stuff, this is the majority of the stuff that's going to be on presumably Wednesday and Thursday night's episode. So when we come back, we should be able to really knock out the next one in 20 to 30 minutes, hopefully.
Right. I'm sure the people who listen aren't going to complain that we went longer.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Yeah, I definitely, again, recommend going back, watching some clips from the house meeting. A lot of fun stuff in there. Watching the feeds in general, because the edited show is not, liable to give you the full story of what's going on. And this season has been a lot of fun. There's a lot of really cool dynamics going on. There's a lot of really interesting players. Tina has been like super, super impressing me. I think she has the potential to be like one of the better Big Brother Canada players of all time if she keeps up what she's doing. Yeah, I'm very excited. Very excited.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I guess if we're all set, Ben, where can they find you online?
You can follow me on Twitter, tweeting, complaining about the edit, or like talking about the live feeds or my thoughts on the game, at Ben Sharon on Twitter, BenSharron.
Awesome. Chad, how about you?
You can find me on Instagram at ChadleyJP and also on Twitter at ChadPerry25. Should be right below me. I just tweet funny shit, so enjoy.
You can follow me on Twitter at TheFakeBMar, that's BMARR. The channel is on Twitter at WGEverything, on Instagram at WickedGoodEverything, on Twitch at twitch.tv/WickedGoodEverything. If you like what Ben's talking about here, Ben plays Among Us every Thursday on Twitch. It's a social strategy game. You're going to like that. So that's on the main channel as well as our Twitch channel. And then you can also follow us on TikTok. Just search Wicked Good Everything, and make sure you like this on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. I don't know what it is on Spotify. Is it just follow or subscribe? But whatever you do on podcast services, please do that. And yeah, see you in the next one. That's it.